I don't want anyone to take away from that video that we should undermine the environment or take it for granted or anything.
Well, heck, okay, huge caveat here, okay?
Yeah.
Is it possible that there would be like a money-hungry, corrupt business with all kinds of tax write-offs and ways of like, I don't know, laundering money or something that could have the guise of being a green-friendly business? Yeah, that's totally possible.
Yeah.
It is possible that somebody would be like, build a whole job out of like coming to workplaces and being like, is this place green? Yeah, no, we're good. Everybody stop everything that's not green enough.
How's it going, spiritual team? Welcome to the community response video. We've been up and running now for a week. Things have been going good, and you guys have been filling out the comments, so we love that. We love hearing from you guys. So we're going to go through those comments, respond to them, and hope you like them. So on our first video, obviously thanks for everyone who hit the like and welcome back and that stuff like that. Thank you very much again for your support. Dan Keeper, he left one right off the bat. He was like, hey, Stage Turquoise vibe, alive and evolving. Give us a Spiral Dynamics view on where you've been mentally spiritual these last few months and where you see the show if it were its own being. Would you say the show and yourselves are at the same development level or perhaps slightly different? I believe something like a channel or production can be in a stage of infancy or maybe even higher evolution, while ourselves can be at the beginning or end of something development-wise.
He's a smart guy. That's a good question. Like, if the show is higher in spiral dynamics than we actually are as people. But first, you got to explain what spiral dynamics are a little bit.
Well, it's just it's a model for how our values evolve over time and stuff like that. And we did a whole series on it. So if you need to check back on that, go back and watch our spiral dynamics videos. They're good videos. But yes, I definitely think a lot of the topics that we talk about on this channel are higher level stages of spiral dynamics than what we personally are.
Yeah.
Now, you might be shocked. I'll tell you where I think I probably am. I would say I'm probably stage orange, trying to phase in green.
And stage orange is what?
The materialist, and it's hard, man. You live in a world because I'm sucked in. I know. I'm sucked in by the, got a family, pay the bills, go to work. I'm trapped in that world.
And
right?
we're in a capitalistic stage orangey culture.
Yeah, the culture around us is so stage orange. I would definitely say I'm probably somewhere in that field. Now, I have a hard time with stage green and stage orange. People who thrive in that area usually have a hard time with stage green.
Stage green being
feeling through your emotions, incorporating your feminine side, opening your heart and becoming more empathetic. It's a work in progress. Let's just say that, right? I would say that I actually part of me wants to skip stage green and go straight to yellow, which is hyper pragmatic and systems thinking and can see things from a meta perspective.
It's like friggin' Elon Musk.
Yeah.
It's
so
systematic.
You want to skip. I want to skip all the mushy gushy stuff and get to the next, but it's not going to be a healthy transition. That happens. But how about you?
Well, what did you think I was? You said you thought I was...
I said you were definitely more green than me. Definitely more green than me.
I get a cold, by the way. That's why my voice sounds weird. I don't know what I am, because I think I'm a pretty chaotic person in a lot of ways. And so I think I do something not very common, which is I'm all over the board. There are times where I feel like I'm touching stage turquoise, which might be an arrogant thing to even think, but it depends on the day. There's some days, you get a bad enough day where the bills are piling up or something. You're not orange.
You're stage red.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the other thing. Without a doubt, I can go all the way down to some stage red sort of.
Yeah.
So that's what that's the best I can do as far as that. As far as the show goes, where we land on.
Well, we touch on a lot, like we look at like gurus and stuff like that, and we try to take a higher perspective, I think, on things, trying to get on top of like, what is this, like the most surface argument happening during a situation or what's going on. But hopefully that answers your question on that one.
Yep. Thanks for the question.
Yeah. So next one, Hard Times. This one was left by Matt Stewart. And it says, it's funny how leftists are always screaming about sexism and racism, but are creating terms like toxic masculinity and white privilege. Yeah, it's never good when anyone's calling anyone names. Like on this channel, we're gonna have like episodes that, you know, see kind of the conservative perspective and leftist perspective, and we try to get on top of that. We're not about pitting one against the other. I think that the conservatives would definitely be just as guilty as calling leftists names like, you know, social justice warriors and libtards and all the stuff that, you know.
I knew a guy once, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but if you went to his house, if you were in another room, he would say clap. And he was a criminal. And the reason he would tell you to do that is because if you're clapping, you can't be stealing, right? Yeah. And we were in there with some friends, and we were in another room, he goes, clap or whatever. And my other friend says to him, like, the only reason you think we would steal is because you steal. You're a thief. So, like, that's why you would think that we would do that. And I think that that's true, right? Oftentimes. We see everybody else from our perspective and what we would do, right? If you're like a strategic person, you might be looking at other people, and there's no way that I think this is a popular opinion. What are you saying? That I'm really not that, you know, that I'm only perceiving my enemies through my filter? Like, come on. Like, obviously we're all seeing things. We don't have the whole picture. How many times in life are you certain of something only to realize like, oh, that's not what I thought it was. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that happens, right? And so I struggle with stuff like terms like toxic masculinity. I struggle with it, right? But, you know, I think you can explore being open to like, well, hang on a sec, before I like completely write these people off, is there any validity to what they're saying? Do they have a point at all? Or are they just completely crazy and you know, like trying to manipulate things? And yeah. Is that all it is? Or are they saying this for any kind of reason? I mean, all these people running around these days that are like hating on groups that aren't like them, we got to remember something. Like, these are all humans, and I know humans are capable of doing some horrendous stuff. But how different really can we be at the end of the day? If we're all human beings, and, you know, they'd probably say something funny like, have you seen them? I don't think they are human beings, you know, but anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Like, yeah, of course.
I try to like what is the gist of what someone's trying to get to in a term being used? Like, what is the end game?
Yeah,
you know, I don't think the end game is to get rid of males. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I think that there's a side, maybe what they're trying to say through a term like toxic masculinity is that there's a side of masculinity in the current culture that we might be in right now that is using its strength and its power to dominate over females, which is the other half of humanity.
Right. But unfortunately, it's often like some kind of catastrophe that causes people to like change their view on things. Like, remember the movie American History X? It's about like a neo-Nazi guy, and it's not till he goes to jail and he's like befriended by a dark-skinned guy.
Yeah.
And then he gets past his racism by the end of the movie. And like, you know, whenever I talk about these things, I have this image of like whoever's listening like shaking their head. But seriously, that seems to be a real thing that it's not till you get your what is it? You got to get your life saved by a trans person before you're like, I guess they're okay. You know what I mean? Like, they're human beings, you know, and even if you disagree with the way they are, how about at least understanding that they're having an experience and they probably wouldn't, you know, whatever it is, if it's trans people or something left, and you're right.
Yeah.
They're having an experience, and it's not necessarily the way you think it is. It might be more complicated than that. There might be more to it than you think.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, for sure. And also until you walk through that person's perspective,
Right.
that person's shoes,
Right.
how can you really be sure about? Do I think at the term toxic masculinity is probably gets overused? Yeah, probably. I do. I think that the terms like that, and it's not necessarily we need to be throwing terms around like this, because you could definitely say from the other side of the spectrum that there's toxic femininity. You could definitely say that.
Right, but we went over this last
But
video.
yeah.
It's not a matter of femininity, masculinity has nothing to do with it. It's more like you could be masculine or feminine and have bad character traits, or character traits that don't, you don't jive with.
Yeah, okay. All right, next question. How to prepare your kids for the future video. This one was one from Terry. Said, interesting ideas, the creator economy, uncertain or unclear what age stage this is to be encouraged in people or how it is extended in a global application. If global warming continues, that'll pretty much sink his creativity.
Right.
So, in terms of age, I think you can encourage creativity on almost as soon as they can walk and talk. I don't think you necessarily need to wait. We didn't have to force our kids to get into art. They wanted to play with crayons instantly.
Right. It's not even usually so much a process of encouraging creativity with kids. It's almost like a process of stifling that. You know, how often are people grow up, get your head out of the clouds.
Get a part of the system.
Right. Which is for good reason, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the past. There's a reason for terms like starving artist and all this stuff. It's it can be tough, especially in a late stage capitalistic culture that we the one we live in.
Yeah.
But this guy was essentially giving the opposite thing, saying the future is creative. The future is gonna be all these things. So start getting those juices going, because that's gonna be of high value in the future, right?
Yes. Yeah. Which I think is true, and I don't know if global warming continues, I don't know what that punchline necessarily need to be thrown on top of the question, but we'll address global warming and a couple of other questions. Next question, political corruption. This was another one by Terry. This is a super long one, but I think the gist of the question was that, what do you think about how we should solve this problem with corruption inside of governments? And it was giving an example of trying to find people who can try to take a neutral stance and not be so mixed up in one side versus the other side.
This was his question to the Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. This was the politics, corruption, and me video.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. How do you do away with parties? I don't even know where you would get started. Maybe you make it so that there's no parties, and then you just divvy up all the regions, and then you just vote for whoever's the best guy in that region. Maybe I don't know how you. I think we talked about that with Sam Blitz when we did he was talking about that kind of cutting things up and.
Yeah, there are other potential templates for running government out there.
Yeah, because you're right. I do think there's deep corruption in politics. I don't know if you think that too, but
well, there could be. I mean, it's so darn far away from me. If there is some kind of deep corruption in politics, then to me, my mind goes to well, why? What does my vote even do? So
yeah.
I think I would try to tackle that fish or think more about that if I had a higher influence in the world. But to me, it's just who can I live with voting for at the end of the day?
Yeah. If you have a better answer for us, we'd like to hear from you about how to come up with something that to address this issue or another style. Moving on, what is death? Another one from Terry. He was this Leo guy, he's strange, but he's tickled his fancy. Leo's a strange cookie. But I think a lot of our concept and idea about death, which Terry was kind of stating in this question here, was that it has to do with like our evolution and our fear of death as we evolve. These concepts or ideas of death and what we think it's about stems out of that fear,
Right.
out of that kind of like as an evolutionary process. And I think there's something valid to that. Definitely, for sure. That video is kind of like trying to target that fear and say that fear that you're so worried about, you don't need to be so worried about.
Yeah.
It's and Terry also asked, well, I'm not sure about his validation method, like, because Leo was like, well, I've died many times.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
Yeah, he's like enlightened or whatever.
yeah, well, yeah, Leo, he's a psychonaut, which means he does tons of psychedelics and he's
How many
in
things,
the gamut.
how many situations would change if you had a higher perspective or more information going into it? Like, how many things have you worried through that at the end if you discovered there was nothing really to worry about? Wouldn't not worrying about it in the first place change your experience? And what if life itself is like that? How would you live differently if you knew that everything was going to be okay or something like that, right?
Yeah.
The question is like how do you, if that's possible, how do you do it? How do you get a higher perspective? Sounds like he's claiming taking a bunch of psychedelics and stuff and then you won't be afraid of death anymore.
Yeah.
I've done psychedelics, I'm still afraid of death, but everybody's different, right? But like this kind of topic almost leads me into like a frustrated state. Because it's like, I know my own struggles. I know places where I'm pretty good. Like, I feel like, man, what's everybody so worried about but where they have relief from that, I might be anxious, right? So we all got these kind of like different perspectives.
Yeah.
And then we come together and then we create a better...
Well, you mentioned in the last video, I think what Leo was trying to do is trying to get you like excited or about, pursuing that type of comprehension of death.
Yeah. Hey, do you want to not have any fear of death?
Yeah, like
Follow the path to enlightenment.
follow Leo Gura.
Yeah. And he's got courses and stuff, of course, right?
Yes.
Like he's
But hey, at the beginning of the video, he was like, "Don't believe any of this shit I'm telling you. Go out and validate it for yourself."
yeah.
Go out and validate it for yourself. All right, our big video of the week: comedian Constantine Kassing. We had
It was a big one.
Yeah, we had a comment from Ian Campbell, who I think is from the islands down south. He said Hispaniola, which I think is the islands, because I looked it up because I didn't know what it meant. And it said Hispaniola is split between Haiti and Dominican Republic. The border is clearly marked as one side is forest, and whereas Haiti is impoverished and has no trees as they have been cut down for fuel. I think what he's trying to say there is that if you don't take care of your environment, you're going to be impoverished.
But yeah.
And Haiti has been exploited like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's like
exploited countries.
There's
in the world.
chunks of the planet that is no good for anyone to use anymore because they're like nuclear reactor sites and stuff like that. Like, how's that? That's ain't good for any economy. You can't go on it. There's deer with 3 heads. Like you can't go there. So on the extreme, that's what it would lead to, right? Like some completely desolate place you can't go.
Yes.
But let's not let it get to the extreme, for Pete's sake. Let's not like just pretend like we don't need any stewardship over the environment.
Yeah.
There are some like obvious, clear things you could look up where it's like, and now this place is fucked up because we fucked it.
Yeah.
So let's not do that.
Yeah, like in Canada, if we cut down trees, we plant new trees right behind the ones that we're cutting down.
Yeah.
So because we know we're going to need trees.
Yeah. Planting tree. Come on. You don't need to go that extreme. Well, like, why not?
All right, Ben Luke. He says, I think on the subject of poor people, you're thinking about it incorrectly. It's not the Western interpretation of poor, it's really absolute poverty. It's watching you and your children waste away every single day. Levels of poor, us being dead in 200 years due to climate change is not a concern to someone living in those circumstances. Now,
Well, Ben.
I don't know exactly. That's what I'm confused because I feel like we were saying that.
I know. I kind of felt that too, but maybe we didn't say it exactly in a way that illustrated that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
I don't want anyone to take away from that video that we should undermine the environment or take it for granted or anything.
well, okay. Huge caveat here. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible that there would be like a money-hungry, corrupt business with all kinds of tax write-offs and ways of like, I don't know, laundering money or something that could have the guise of being a green-friendly business? Yeah, that's totally possible.
Yeah.
It is possible that somebody would be like, build a whole job out of like coming to workplaces and being like, is this place green? Yeah, no, we're good. Everybody stop everything that's not green enough. And be like a piece of shit. Yeah, that's possible. But overall, the idea of being green-friendly and environmentally conscious is the right thing to do. Yes, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes people are like, don't even bring up the corrupt thing. Like, well, come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah, exactly. Like, to me, in that video, one of the prime things that stuck out was that, like, the way to, like, for us to, one, fix this thing is to get those other countries that are, like, impoverished, help them reach prosperity so we can all get on the same page so they can actually think about the environment because they can't even think about it right now.
Yeah.
And two, we're gonna need technological advancements to help us get there. What we're doing right now is ridiculous in this country. Well, like, we're just gonna tax people for using their pollutants and not give them an option to be cleaner. That's the option. Is that we're all they've done is said we're going to make you more poor, which is what he's saying is absolutely how you can't fix the environment.
Yeah.
But we're gonna tax you into oblivion, and that'll save the environment. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. All right, last question here. Is free speech under attack? This one again is from Den Keeper. He says the free speech thing is always tricky when it comes to private platforms. I think some of us might assume that something like our beloved tube is a public place, but it's actually a private business, and we've agreed to share on it. The line between where and what is a public space seems to be getting cloudier and cloudier. It also seems like our ability to tell real from fake is being attacked just as much as our right to free speech. GAT topic.
It was a GAT topic.
It was a GAT topic.
Again, Den with I resonate with Den big time, man. His vibe, his approach to things, everything. Like I dig his questions and his thinking because it's a good, it's true, man. This isn't the only endeavor we've ever done. Mm-hmm. This one's doing okay, but in the trial and error process, testing out other platforms and seeing what's working and stuff like that, there's some suspicious ass shit. What about that guy that you were looking at that was like a homosexual?
I wanted to save that for that video.
Oh, okay.
We'll save that for that video, so make sure you watch our other videos because we're gonna.
The gist of what I was about to say is that it sometimes seems like people are like taken care of and silenced. That like this dude would have bridged the gap. This guy would have
exactly
fixed the contention, and then instead like the algorithms and stuff they make things more polarized, and then it's like, well, where's truth? What kind of honor are we giving truth in all this?
It really feels like we're being forced to pick a side. No matter what, we're gonna stretch it out, and we're gonna nah, you're too centrist.
Yeah,
you're not. You're helping everyone get along, and we want that.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing here?
Develop a term. Guys, any ideas what term can we use? How about fence sitter? Ooh, that's good. Spread the word fence sitter out there. It's like a bad thing. Yeah.
We don't want that. But anyway, I guess that is there anything else you want to say on that one?
Nope.
No? All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode here for our community response. We're going to continue to keep these rolling, so keep filling out the comments and shooting them on over to us because we enjoy getting back to you. But I guess we'll end this episode here, and everybody, until next time,
Stay spiritual.
stay spiritual.
Stay spiritual.
Stay spiritual.